Actually, Laura, do you want to fold a blanket just, and then I'll show you how to use these puppies. First of all, would you like some support?
Yes, please. Where? Where's calling? Back of the head and underneath the neck and underneath the knees.
So I want you to notice that in terms of eliciting the parasympathetic response, every place in the body that has a little arch, if you give support into that arch, it will have an immediate effect on the nervous system in terms of eliciting. So we have an arch right here at the back of the neck. We have an arch under the belly button in the lower back. We have an arch right at the little crease of the butt right here. We have an arch under the knees, under the wrists, under the ankles, under the wrists. So if you even just take little pillows, you can do that, but now we're doing a bigger support.
So if I remember correctly, you prefer your legs up a little higher because of your back? Yeah, so just a little up. Than what the little pillows do. Yeah, exactly. So some people prefer to have their legs up a little higher, so what you can do is create different shapes or different heights by using the blanket. So I can either roll it, this is one, and the other, if she wants it a little higher, is I can create a Z, a Z, and folding it into basically thirds like this. And you can pull your knees towards your chest. You can place this under.
All right, so in the meantime, let me just show you. Of course, the long, we've designed the long for two things. One is that it marks a midline. So oftentimes I will heat, especially somebody who has difficulty sensing themselves. So if you heat this midline, just move your hands a little bit, you can put it along, and it gives a person, because we have here the different vagal stations, so it actually sends warmth into the whole vagal system. And oftentimes, once it's warm, then I'll just do a little bit of touch through the pillow, and it allows a targeted warmth to come into the body. So you can do it whatever's going on in your session. Oftentimes around the navel feels really good, or at the heart, and here. And you can actually do quite a bit of movement through the pillow, and it spreads the heat. And it's really it's like that piece of nurturing the neglect is right there, so well addressed.
So with someone that has a sensitive lower back, so I'm going to ask you what feels better. Relax your legs. What are these things? Heels. Heels on the table, up. And then let me lift your legs for you. You track what's going on.
Yeah, I like them up a little bit. So what's happening is a drop between the cushion and my foot. I like that gap to be filled.
You want the gap to be filled. And it also takes the lever pulling from her lower back off. So I'm going to lift. Actually, I'm going to just do a single fold.
It's a little poofy.
Yeah, poofy. A fold so that.
There we go. That's nice.
So,
Right,
and
so
I can actually mold the blanket to get underneath
Yeah.
her heels, under that little.
This is where the blankets are so useful, because you can move them around and they have enough density that they will hold. Sometimes with cushions and pillows, you can't hold a particular point of contact in the same way that you can with the blankets.
And if she felt like she wanted her legs even higher,
No.
I'm just saying if, because people with lower backs often need that, or if they have a lordotic curve, you can put another layer under there.
Okay. So another use for the long one is that we want to give some support. Is it okay? Because this one I'm now demonstrating. Is you can warm it up and slide it under. And then you have these ends, which I often will just wrap around the ears.
So what she did seems a little tricky, but it's not. She put the she put the long pillow on one side. She lifted up with the same side hand, and then she lifted her head up, and then with the other hand she slid the long pillow under the neck. Does that make sense? And we can show that.
Yeah, you want to show it again? You can if you want.
I think it's fine. People will figure it out. Now, with people who have a lot of auditory vigilance, which if you grew up in a family where people were screaming, it's like there's a lot of trauma in the ears. And the trauma in the ears is like how, if you don't want to hear something, how are you going to stop yourself from hearing it? Because with eyes, we can avert our eyes, we can close our eyes, we can not look. But the ears are picking up. So there's a tendency to create a lot of closure at the cranial base, which then all of these tissues wrap around the inner ear. So it creates a lot of internal pressure that you can't really release through letting go of muscles. So by doing this, and then bringing the warmth around the ears, and sometimes I'll just take another little pillow just to hold it up like that. It's like the person starts to unwind a lot of auditory vigilance. Kids would love this.
Yeah.
Adults love it too. So that's another. So here's another little piece.
You know, sometimes what I like to do, even though I have my blankets here, to put a warm round under the knee, and then just lift. You don't have to help. Place it under the knee, and then drop it. So it brings the attention, the warmth, to the behind the knee. Feels really delicious. Imagine that's warm.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Right. Meantime, we're just going to swaddle her here. The heart is actually an interesting shape because of this. Of course, it's nice, as a symbol to give to the heart. But it also happens that, I'm just going to roll this out of the way for a minute, that if you place it on the high heart and throat, this is the throat center, the expression center, and the high heart. You put it here, it's very soothing. And it begins also when we begin the work with the throat and the voice expression, which again, in families where you can't ever tell your truth, a lot of trauma gets stored in the throat. So that's one way. And then another way is to bring it over the eyes. We do this all the time when napping, is using it this way. And it's nice because it doesn't just cover the eyes, it does the whole forehead. So there's a sense of letting that brain executive function sort of go, you can relax, there's nothing you can do right now. There's a warm pillow on you. Why don't you just enjoy it? And it really helps calm that executive function of the brain.
Looks.
Okay, anything else?
Sometimes I'll put another warm around the edge of her body. Let's say, so this warmth here.
Ooh, that's
To have a
nice.
sense of your body boundaries.
I like it at the
Yeah,
hip. It feels
right.
good on the hip.
Right. Sides of the bodies, the tibial band and the sides have a lot to do with boundaries. If you're doing boundary breach, if there's been
Yes.
boundary breach and you want to help the person sort of get their energy back in, because like the slime mold, there's been some breach and energy is just leaking out. And people don't realize how much energy is leaking out of their system and how dispersed they can become when there's a boundary breach. So we use the pillows on the sides, and when they're warm again, it begins to give the brain a sense of, oh, this is where I stop, and this is the outside world is out there, because that sense of a boundary of this is me and this is out there, gets violated and broken, and people just sort of soak in the world and don't realize why they feel so overwhelmed by their outer circumstances.
And you can touch through it, and she can sense that, modulating the pressure. The ribs, the viscera, the pelvis.
Yeah. So then we're not doing a session,
Yep,
remember?
I know.
So here's the thing. Sometimes
Ooh, you're like,
Too
yeah, but I
bad.
want one.
so let's take the pillows away.
Okay.
There are times where people do not want their legs because they need to know they have their legs to run. People who are very vigilant on that. So you don't want to automatically assume that they will need all these supports everywhere. They may or may not. So if they don't, then we can take, the little rounds are good for that, is you can just put a little bit of support under the knee this way.
So gently lifting the knee and pulling it through.
Yeah. So you start to see how your creativity will lead you to figure out something. And then you can do then the long on either side along the iliotibial band. And that gets a sense, particularly if there has been sexual abuse, the sense of being able to bring the legs together, but not in a stressed holding way, that there's an outside environment that is supporting that coming back into midline. And midline starts at the top of the head and even above and comes down, and midline, you'll notice, is between the legs. So if somebody splays out quite a bit, I actually will give them a support this way and have them sense and maybe touch their feet so they sense their whole length and their grounding all the way down to the feet. Okay?
I found with people that have had sexual inappropriate contact, they are in the inside edges of their legs are really holding, and when you give them something to release into, they can soften the medial edge, or the adductors on the end, and then they can drop in or release into their outer edges of their body, the iliotibial bands. And the same concept is happens when you're seated.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I think for now that's enough. Any
She's like, more.
and when you remove them, it's nice to do it gently, so we just roll them.
One thing here, Lynn. Questions?
Well, this demonstration, was this more for what we're doing later this afternoon, this part, than the womb thing, or?
That can be the womb. Like if somebody doesn't want to be on their side.
Right.
It'd be nice if you experience, but if they don't, some people don't. And also for this afternoon. This is for any time.
For always. Okay, thank you.
This is, yes, for always. So that I just wanted you to have that tool, because if you're not comfortable touching, you can start this way. And that allows you to begin to tend to somebody's body. And even without realizing it, then you start to touch. Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes I like to put the pillows on the thighs. Clients really like the weight.
Yes.
It makes them feel really solid.
Right. So you're going to discover, like that? So you're going to discover all kinds of ways to use them. They're just, when we first introduced them last time, people went, just another gimmick product. And it took a while to get the message across that it really does a lot of the work for you, that it simplifies and makes things easier. Plus, we only have two hands, so these are like extensions of our hands, and you can tend to a lot more of the body having them.
Right.
Yes.
Cross the belly.
Right. Exactly.
Cross. Yep. Cross the iliums. Yeah. And it can really hold. You can just tuck in here. So diaphragm, diaphragm, diaphragm.
Yes, Ned?
Here. Yep. Hold on, the mic. Can we?
The pillows that's around the cranial base and the neck, that's where the vagus enters the brain.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's really a crucial part.
Right, and we're going to do that this afternoon, actually work a lot with the cranial base and why it's important and how it's probably of any interventions you can do one of the most important ones.
And can be done seated as well. So
Right.
do you want to review a seated?
No.
Okay,
Not
we'll
now.
do that later.
Yeah, because
Okay.
of time. All right, so I wanted to also go through, I'm looking for a chair.
For yourself or?
Yeah. Yes.